A while ago, I made a very well-received video about my most favourite thing in the whole widest world. ETCS, 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 ETCS. One of the most frequently asked questions I've had since then is, what's the difference between ETCS and CBTC? So, I'm going to answer it. Before I do though, I'm legally required to inform you that more ETCS has been announced. In late October, Siemens was awarded a contract to deliver the first stage of Digital Systems Tranche 2, which includes ETCS Level 2, with no ATO yet, I don't think, between Town Hall and Hornsby. Siemens have said in their own media release that this includes replacing the current track circuits with more reliable axle counters, as well as the other ETCS stuff. It's impossible to know exactly at the moment what the scope is, whether it includes things like the Hornsby upsidings or if it extends past Town Hall to the Tivoli crossovers. Time will tell, I guess. It should hopefully be done by the end of the decade. By then, only 4th gen trains will run on the North Shore Line anyway, so the issues with Tangaras on the Cronulla ETCS trial shouldn't be repeated. Speaking of Cronulla, Tranche 1 should, again hopefully, be commissioned next year. Transport claim the Tangara technology upgrade has progressed from prototyping to actual widespread work, and with any luck the Tangaras will play nicer with ETCS after their upgrades. Testing is set to commence on the Eastern Suburbs Level 2 section before the end of the year, too. Now to the battle of the cab signals. If you don't know what ETCS or CBTC is, then you should have watched my video about it. ETCS stands for the European Train Control System and is a multi-level standardized system developed to replace the many national signalling and safety systems in Europe. It has since emerged as a worldwide best practice system to both increase speed, capacity, reliability, and the safety of trains. I talk about the different levels of ETCS in my video about it, but for simplicity's sake, I'll only talk about ETCS levels 2 and 3. CBTC, on the other hand, stands for Communications-Based Train Control and is a bit of a wishy-washy term. Technically, anything that uses some form of wireless communication to communicate movement authorities, or how far trains are allowed to go, qualifies as CBTC, and to that extent I've seen New South Wales Electronic Train Order System, called TMAX, described as a CBTC system, when no one in their right mind would otherwise. It is, however, almost always used to describe a range of proprietary moving block systems. I should also introduce some general signalling concepts. Traditional signalling is described as colour light fixed block, meaning the railway is divided into discrete sections, or fixed blocks, and only one train may occupy a block at a time. The start of each block is marked with a colour light signal, which indicates the occupancy of the block with different colours. I talk more about this in my New South Wales signalling video. ETCS Level 2 remains a fixed block system with trackside rail vehicle detection, mostly as axle counters. However, signals are replaced with passive block marker boards. Block occupancy is sent to a central computer, sometimes called a traffic management system. This TMS interfaces with the existing signalling control system, which signallers use to set routes and track occupancies, and sends the occupancy information and any set routes to the many radio block centres, or RBCs, which then combine this data with the train's radio reported positions to generate ETCS movement authorities, which are then broadcasted back to the trains by radio. The trains themselves know where they are by scanning track-mounted beacons, called Eurobalizers, and counting wheel revolutions, and sometimes radar is also used. This accurate location data enables the train to know exactly how far it can travel and at what speed, but in Level 2 it's not used to calculate the movement authorities of other trains. In simple terms, the train knows where it is within the occupied block, and thus can travel faster and safer, but can only go as far as the next block marker, as it doesn't know where the other trains are. Level 2 can improve capacity over traditional signalling by making blocks shorter without reducing line speed, which would be unsafe with colour light signals. ETCS Level 3 turns the train location reporting into a safety critical function, allowing the RBC and TMS to issue movement authorities right up to the rear of the train in front. This makes Level 3 a moving block system, i.e. trains travel as far as the line is actually unoccupied and there's no wasted space. This requires trains to guarantee that they haven't separated mid-block. Sometimes the trackside detection is completely removed in true Level 3, but often it's retained with block markers, which is a hybrid Level 3. This allows Level 2 trains to travel over Level 3 lines, albeit slightly further apart. ETCS Level 3 hasn't really been widely used, but as the technology gets proven, it could well become far more widespread, particularly in metro systems where CBTC has traditionally been favoured. The primary advantage of ETCS is that it is an interoperable standard. In Sydney's case, Alstom fitted the Level 1 system, Siemens the Cronulla and North Shore Level 2, Alstom the Eastern Suburbs Level 2, and Ansaldo Breda fitted the train-borne ETCS equipment. Both ETCS Level 2 and 3 can be layered with automatic train operation, or ATO, but I don't think unattended train operation, or UTO, has been used with ETCS yet. However, the ATO layers aren't standardized, so if Siemens, for example, fit the line-side ATO layer, it must also fit the train-borne ATO layer. CBTC as a term almost always refers to moving block systems, similar to ETCS Level 3. However, they are almost never interoperable. Most rolling stock suppliers have their own CBTC system that is designed to work within an environment solely provided by that supplier. Alstom has its Obalus, used on the M1 line. Bombardier, which is now Alstom, supplied CityFlow, which is used on the Notta metro tunnel. Siemens has TrainGuard, used on the Crossrail core and the future Sydney Metro WSA, and Hitachi has CellTrack, used on large parts of the London Underground. It's certainly not always the case, though, that trains have their own supplier's CBTC product. The Melbourne Notta metro tunnel uses CityFlow CBTC from Bombardier originally, but it uses rolling stock from CRRC. Downer, of course. The actual system architecture of CBTC is mostly the same as ETCS Level 3, just each supplier has a different name for the components. A lot of the suppliers even use the same parts for both their ETCS and CBTC products. At Chatswood, you'll see the same beacons used on both the Metro's CBTC and the train's ETCS. Historically, CBTC has been reserved for fully segregated, low-complexity lines, i.e. metros, as this avoids having to deal with tricky system interfaces and transitions. Nowadays, though, CBTC is starting to be used on quasi-mainline railways like Crossrail or the NAM UNL. This, however, limits the types of trains that can use these systems, and ETCS will allow the same capacity while allowing any ETCS Level 3 fitted train to use the line. The advantages of CBTC are ironically the same as its drawbacks. Whilst being proprietary means it limits the usefulness of the system, limiting fleet, and locks in a single supplier, it does allow the single supplier to layer all manner of ancillary systems like ATO, UTO, platform edge door controls, pore adhesion controls, timetable management, passenger information systems, and more in just one package. ETCS would require individual packages that would probably need to be proprietary anyway. Take Brisbane's Cross River Rail, a project which definitely didn't draw any brand inspiration from any other project at all, which will use Hitachi's ETCS product in the core. This will mean any train that wants to interface with the PSDs or ATO must be fitted with Hitachi ETCS equipment. In practice, this is actually a bad example because the door spacing means only one type of train can use the tunnel in passenger service anyway. Other trains could still use the tunnel as part of an empty run, driven manually without stopping. Other areas of QR's ETCS rollout will not have these layers and as such should be fully interoperable. In summary, ETCS is a highly interoperable system designed to simplify mainline railway networks with many different fleets, service types, and lines in a cost-effective and fast way. Some mainline networks also include high-density cores, and in these cases it makes sense to use ETCS to deliver some capacity benefits whilst preserving interoperability. In really dense areas, proprietary layers can be added which negate some of the interoperability benefits, but significantly improve capacity, reliably up to 24 trains per hour for level 2 and 30 trains per hour for level 3. For these reasons, operators such as Sydney Trains and Queensland Rail have elected to use ETCS as their cab signalling system of choice. ETCS was also recently made the Australian national standard for digital signalling on the standard gauge freight network, in light of the recent failure of ATMS, but I won't hold my breath on its actual implementation. CBTC is a family of similar but slightly different and incompatible systems which provide the base capability of moving block signalling, but with other optimizations that make them very well suited to high-capacity metro-style operations, with simple lines, no major junctions, simple timetables, and single fleets. For this reason, it is mostly found on metro systems or in the cores of high-capacity suburban systems. Here's a cheeky bonus for watching all the way to the end. You may have noticed some CBT systems include a sort of block marker very similar to the ETCS block marker, except just a chevron, not an arrow. These are actually the block markers for a different type of cab signalling, the now obsolete French TVM system, used on French, Belgian and British true high-speed lines. TVM is fixed block, just like ETCS level 2, and the block markers are used in the same way. They're used on some CBTC routes, including Crossrail and the NAM UNL, to mark stopping locations at times when CBTC is operated in a degraded state and trains are being driven manually, but they're not routinely used. Thanks for watching this video, and thanks to my members for their support. Melburnians, tell me your thoughts on your brand new Not a Metro tunnel, and everyone else, thanks for watching.